The Battle of La Malmaison from 23 to 27 October was the final French action of the 1917 campaign of the First World War, which had begun with the Nivelle Offensive. The French captured the village and fort of La Malmaison and took control of the Chemin ridge. The German 7th Army had discovered French preparations for the attack and also identified the date and time. General Max von Boehn chose to defend the front positions, rather than treat them as an advanced zone and conduct the main defense north of the Canal de la Isère. The German artillery was outnumbered 3-1 and on the front of the 14th Division, 32 German batteries were confronted by 125 French, which silenced most of the German guns before the attack. Gas from French bombardments on low-lying land near the canal in the Ailette Valley became so dense that the carriage of ammunition and supplies to the German front positions and removal of the wounded was made impossible. Battalions from German 9 Graf divisions had been distributed along the front line and were caught in the French bombardments, in which the German infantry shelters had been identified by French air reconnaissance and systematically destroyed. After the 4-day bombardment was extended by 2 more days due to bad weather, which had slowed the destruction of targets behind the German front, the French 14th, 21st and 11th Corps of the 6th Army attacked on a 7.5-mile front with 6 divisions. 0 hour had been set for 5:45 a.m., but a German message ordering the front garrisons to be ready at 5:30 a.m. was intercepted and the French start time was moved forward to 5:15 a.m. The French infantry advanced behind an elaborate creeping barrage, but the earlier 0 hour meant that the attack began in the dark. Rain began to fall at 6 o'clock a.m., and the 63 attached Schneider CA-1 and Chemin tanks were impeded by mud and 27 bogged behind the French front line. 15 tanks were immobilized crossing no man's land or in the German front line, but the French infantry and the 21 tanks which remained operational reached the German second position according to plan. The 38th Division captured Fort de Malmaison and 21st Corps took Alamand and Vauderson. From 24-25 October, 21st and 14th Corps advanced rapidly and the 1st Cavalry Corps was brought forward into the 14th Corps area, ready to exploit a German collapse. The 7th Army conducted the Bunselwitz-Bewegung, a retirement from the Chemin des Dames to the north bank of the Ailette. On the night of 1/2 November. Background. Strategic developments. Nivelle Offensive. General Robert Nivelle replaced Joseph Joffre as French commander-in-chief in December 1916. After the costly fighting at Verdun and the Somme, Nivelle claimed that a massive barrage on German lines could bring French victory in 48 hours and avoid the costly battles of attrition. Grignotage fought in 1916. The French offensive began on 16 April 1917, after support from the France Prime Minister. Despite the doubts of other politicians, Pétain, Michelet, other senior army commanders and the British, the Nivelle offensive involved c. 1.2 million French and British troops and 7,000 artillery pieces on fronts between Reims and Roye after preliminary offensives at Arras and Saint-Quentin. The principal effort was an attack on the German positions along the Chemin des Dames ridge. In the Second Battle of the Aisne intended to rupture the German defences in 48 hours, bring about a battle of maneuver and defeat decisively the German armies in France. From February to March 1917, the German armies in the Noyon and Bapaume salients retired to a new line of fortifications, the Siegfriedstellung, across the base of the salients, from Neuville-Vitasse near Arras, through St. Quentin and Laon to the Aisne east of Soissons, ending at Cernay-en-Laon on the Chemin des Dames ridge. Although the withdrawal to the last part of the line did not take place, the new fortifications were intended to be precautionary, built to be used as rallying positions eventual Stellungen to shorten the Western Front, economize on troops and create reserves. The Siegfried-Stellung had the potential to release the greatest number of troops and was begun first on the 27th of September 1916. The French Third Army began the offensive against German observation points at St. Quentin from 1 to 13 April, which took some of the German defences in front of the Siegfried-Stellung. On the 9th of April, the British Third Army began the Battle of Arras from Croisier to Écurie, against Observation Ridge, north of the Arras-Cambrai road and towards Fuchy and the German second and third lines. The British attack either side of the Scarpa River penetrated 6,000 yards, the furthest advance achieved since the beginning of trench warfare. Most of the objectives were reached by the evening of the 10th of April, except for the line between Wancourt and Fuchy around Neuville-Vitasse. The First Army attacked from Écurie north of the Scarpa to Vimy Ridge, which fell at about 1 o'clock p.m. in a 4,000 yards advance. By the 16th of May, the British had captured 254 German guns but had not broken through. Second Battle of the Aisne. In the Second Battle of the Aisne, the French failed to achieve the strategic objective of a breakthrough and a return to a war of movement, but captured tactically important ground, and inflicted many casualties on the German defenders. The Germans were forced to retire from the area between Braine-l'Aisne, Condé-sur-Aisne and Lafaux to the Hindenburg line from Lafaux-Mill, along the Chemin des Dames to Cortecan. The German armies in France were still short of reserves. Despite the retirements to the Hindenburg line in March and lost 163,000 casualties during the Nivelle Offensive. Because of the shortage of troops, the front-holding divisions had to change places with the Eingreiff divisions, rather than be withdrawn to recuperate. In a lull from the 9th of May to the 20th of August, more German divisions were depleted than at Verdun the previous year. Of the German divisions engaged on the ridge, none spent more than 12 days in the line, and only the 46th Reserve Division returned for another period in the line. The French took 8,552 prisoners. Tactical developments. Battle of the Observatories, May to October. From May, there were many local actions on the Chemin des Dames ridge. On the 23rd of May, a German assault on the Vauclerc Plateau was defeated, and on the 24th of May, a second attack was driven back in confusion. During the night, the French took the wood southeast of Chevreau and almost annihilated 2 German battalions. On the 25th of May, 3 German columns attacked a salient northwest of Braine-l'Aisne and gained a footing in the French First Trench, before being forced out by a counterattack. On the 26th of May, German attacks on salients east and west of Cernay were repulsed, and from 26-27 May, German attacks between Varques-Salon and Lafaux-Mill were defeated. 2 attacks on the 28th of May at Hurtebise were stopped by French artillery, and on the night of the 31st of May, the 1st of June, Germans' attacks west of Cernay also failed. On the morning of the 1st of June, after a heavy bombardment, German troops took some trenches north of Lafaux-Mill and were then pushed out by a counter-attack in the afternoon. On the 2nd of June, a bigger German attack began after an intensive bombardment of the French front, from the north of Lafaux to the east of Berry-au-Bac. On the night of 2/3 June, 2 German divisions made 5 attacks on the east. west and central parts of the California Plateau and the west end of the Vauclerc Plateau. The Germans attacked in waves, sometimes advancing shoulder to shoulder, supported by flamethrower detachments. Some ground was gained on the Vauclerc Plateau, until French counter-attacks recovered the ground. Despite the French holding improvised defenses and the huge volume of German artillery fire used to prepare attacks, the German organized counter-attacks met with little success and at Chevreau northeast of Craonne. The French advanced further into the Laon plain. On the night of 26–27 August, German artillery conducted a preliminary bombardment for an attack early on the 27th of August, west of the Soissons-Laon road, from Moissy Farm to the southeast of Vaux-Salon and Lafaux. East of the road, the French defences on either side of Cerny and on both sides of the Hurtebise monument were attacked. Near Lafaux the Germans recovered some ground. By the 30th of August, the strength of each company of the German battalion holding the captured ground had been reduced to 40 to 50 men. A fresh battalion which relieved it after dark was bombarded by the French artillery throughout the night of the 31st August and during the rest of the 31st of August. At 7 o'clock p.m., 2 battalions of French infantry and a battalion of chasseurs advanced behind a creeping barrage on a shrapnel bombardment, with double barrages along each flank. A squadron of aeroplanes machine-gunned the German infantry and the crews of trench mortars and batteries beyond the crest. In 15 minutes, the French attack recaptured the ground, except on the right flank, where a machine-gun nest resisted until the morning. 3 German counter-attacks in the night were costly failures and about 200 prisoners were captured by the French, along with 7 machine guns. On the night of 1/2 September, 2 more German counter-attacks failed. On the 31st of August, a French party northeast of Craonne wrecked 200 yards of German trench southeast of Corbeny and returned with 12 prisoners. On the same day, a German raid to the southeast of Vaux-Salon was repulsed, as was one in the Cerny region during the night of 1/2 September. 4 attacks on the Hurtebise spur were made on the 3rd of September by 3 waves of German infantry, which failed to penetrate the French covering barrage. Simultaneous attempts were made to advance on the I Plateau to the west of the spur and to the east. On the evening of the 4th of September and morning of the 5th of September, attacks were made on the casemates and on the California Plateau above Craonne, which were repulsed by artillery and machine gun barrages. For most of September, artillery duels and raids by both sides took place from Vaux-Salon to Craonne. Long-range guns bombarded villages and chateaux far behind the front line, directed by observers in lines of observation balloons, which were protected by aircraft and many anti-aircraft guns. From 2021 September, a German attack south of the Arbre de Cerny and at the neck joining the casemates to the California Plateau failed, and on the night of 12–13 October, Thuringian storm troops attacked between the western edge of the Hurtebise finger and the French positions in the plain east of Craonne, north of Vauclerc Mill. The Germans captured the French first line but were pushed back by counter-attack. German detachments probing between the Hurtebise spur and the south of Le Royer were also repulsed. On the 17th of October, the French preliminary bombardment for the offensive at La Malmaison began, and the next day the German communiqué read northeast of Soissons. The lively fighting activity, which has lasted for days past, developed to an artillery battle, which, since early yesterday, has continued with only short intervals from the Ailette region as far as Bray. The batteries of the neighboring sectors also took part in the duel, and during the 18th of October, French detachments patrolled between Vaux-Salon and Braine-l'Alleud. destroyed several strongpoints and returned with 100 prisoners from 4 German divisions. Until the beginning of the battle, the artillery of both sides fired constantly, with much trench mortar fire by the French, which a German report of the 20th of October reported had transformed the foremost fighting zone between Vauxhallon and Bray into a crater field. Since the Chemin des Dames ridge was honeycombed with large limestone caves and quarries, adequate artillery preparation was indispensable. Fortifications Fort La Malmaison lay on the Chemin des Dames ridge and had been built as part of an entrenched camp north of the Aisne, in the Circuit-Rivières system, designed by General Raymond Adolphe Circuit-Rivières and built from the 1870s. The fort was in the northern angle between the Chemin des Dames and the Soissons-Léon road. The fortress casemates were tested with high explosives in 1887 and found to be insufficiently robust. Steel-reinforced concrete had been added, but in 1913, the fort was sold to a Léon contractor to demolish and use the materials to build new barracks in town. A long tunnel, the Montparnasse quarry, lay on the northern slopes below the fort, on the route to Chavignon village at the foot of the ridge. The quarry was big enough to shelter an infantry brigade. The fort was to the northwest of the quarry, on the summit of the plateau at the western end of the ridge, and the dismantled work was surrounded by a moat filled with mud. The subterranean galleries had been rebuilt and garrisoned by the Germans in September 1914, the outworks and interior being provided with several ferro-concrete machine gun nests. For the ramparts, the Germans could see all movement from the Ailette to the Aisne and on the spurs running down to the Aisne from the Chemin des Dames ridge. There was a clear view northwards from the fort over the Ailette, along the lower edge of the west side of the forest of Coucy and past the village of Brancourt. To the east were 2 groups of hills round Annecy. On the north bank of the Ailette, Léon was about 8 miles distant and visible at the end of the valley of the Ardenne, which joins the Ailette north of Chavignon. Further east, beyond the Bassin d'Alimentation Reservoir, was the hilltop village of Monimtoy. East of the reservoir, the valley of the Upper Ailette was visible as far as the Troyes-Léon road. South of Fort de la Malmaison, in the center of the plateau closer to the French lines, lay the huge Bohéry quarry, where the ground began to slope steeply down towards the Aisne Valley. In October 1917, German engineers were still connecting the quarry with the Montparnasse tunnel, other underground works and the galleries under the fort. The Montparnasse, Fort de la Malmaison and Bohéry excavations, the fruity quarry on the edge of the Soissons-Léon road, about 1 mile east of La Faux Mill, and many other subterranean obstacles faced the Sixth Army.